Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on this channel. In this video we're going to go through all of the injuries, whether they are in doubt for round one, out for the season, or just sort of that sort of middle point there, I would say, which is that round 3 to 8 or round 3 to 10 that we're seeing a lot of guys, hamstring injuries, minor surgeries, etc. falling into that bracket. So we'll go through all of them. It's probably going to be a long-ish discussion on a lot of the teams. And we'll go through all of them and their sort of compounding effects, as a lot of guys will probably get games early, rookies will get games early, etc. And some rookies themselves are more so timeline to be in that 3 to 5 bracket for debuting in rounds 3 to 5 respectively. So anyway, let's just jump into this video here. So as you can see here, I'll have the guys just sort of name searched on Fantasy, and we'll go through them. So the first guy, Max McElhaney, just dislocated his thumb, targeting a round 1 return, 2 to 4 weeks. So in my database, he is a light yellow, which is sort of on the brink for round 1. So he doesn't really have much to discuss about, as I don't think he will miss many games, and I don't think he's in a really fantasy-friendly role. Strachan as well, similar thing, but I don't think he plays. So the Adelaide injuries are very much a team that's not going to be discussed as much. Looks like Dodie for the likes of Brisbane will be fine. Well, I should say, I was thinking about Lincoln McCarthy, actually. Lincoln McCarthy, round 1, it sounds like, from what we're hearing, or round 0 or whatever. So he's sort of on that brink. Dodie's probably the first guy out of this that will be missing around their opening round, but should be back by sometime around gather round. The same can be said about Kitty Coleman. The impact on that is probably a better, more smoother roll early for Zorko, and that's the thing about Zorko, is that I'm probably against picking him 1 because I don't see there being value, and 2 because I think there's going to be a role change mid-season, and I don't like primos that will have that potential role change, even if it's just a -5 or 10 with Kitty Coleman coming back. I just don't like that potential there. But also he could just score 130 in the first couple of weeks. It'd be really impactful in Supercoach, because a lot of people have that extra primo on the early buy. They have one guy there that they have sort of, I guess, note tagged as a top 6 guy, or bookmarked as a top 6 guy. So some people have Zorko there. I personally have Whitfield, but you see where that's coming from. And then Oscar McInerney, haven't really heard much on him, but I suspect he will be good for round 1 from the news that I have. Then we get to the likes of the Carlton Footy Club, and I know that I forgot to actually update this, but anyway, Ben Camporelli is in doubt for round 1 with an ankle infection, but I don't expect him to play anyway, just because he was a later pick in, 30-40s that he was selected or matched on, I should say, and they just have a lot of other quality guys there, like Doherty should be running around on that wing as well. Then the guy that's probably going to have the most discussion about for Carlton is Nick Newman, missing the whole campaign with a ruptured patella. And this massively opens up reins for, well, we thought it would be Doherty potentially, but it sounds like it's going to be Ollie Hollands, which, yeah, I really like the look of him. I like him as terms of like a backup option in that M5 role to the likes of a Peatling, who I think will do better in his role. I like Peatling's role slightly better, but I think he's definitely in consideration. 7% owned. We'll get to see probably, I don't know when their practice games are exactly, but I suspect we get to see 1 or 2 practice games, an official and an unofficial practice game, where he's going to be playing that role, and we'll just see how it looks there. Because if he's on kick-ins and stuff like that, he could easily be a guy that you maneuver into the back line, and you almost are able to get him there who will just take that rookie off field, etc., because the backline rookies are very, very slim early, and so you may want to get to a back 6 quickly that is scoring 90 plus or 80 plus, I would say. So he could also be a better option than Peatling, just because Peatling will always get that influx of sort of mid rookies, I feel like, throughout the year. So that's why he could definitely be an option, even if he's going 2 or 3 less than Peatling or has 2 or 3 less value in the long run. And then Charlie Curnow, probably in doubt there's much doubt over him with the surgery that he's having to play round 1, but he could be available round 2. That could have knock-on effects of TDK potentially, as I don't really see them having many other key position players that are really ready for the forward line. And we know that they did play at points with Kennedy as a key, but I don't know if he's going to play there. And now that they've moved Silvani down back, they've sort of lost that option there. So I wonder what's going to happen there with that. So TDK might play a little bit forward, which would pretty much take him off of the list, I would say, in terms of the guys in the ruck line. I haven't had an update for Collingwood injuries for a little bit, for about a couple of days now. But yeah, Jordan De Goey back running. I think that's a sort of in doubt round 1 scenario. Tom Mitchell, the same foot injury. I suspect they will probably be lenient with Tom Mitchell there, so I don't expect him to play. Dan Houston obviously has a suspension, so that's why he's just propped up a little bit. Now, all of these guys, I'm kind of looking for. This talk was more about the guys that are missing into round 3, 4, 5 areas or more, rather than these guys that are sort of flicking between playing round 1 or round 2, because that's probably going to cause more chaos trying to find the guy that, say, replaces a Tom Mitchell for 1 round but then goes straight back out, or something like that if it's Jordan De Goey that we're mentioning here, etc. So it's more the guys that are fully out for a little while. Di Mattia was in protocols for concussion, but that was a week ago now, so he should be fine, I would suspect. And then you've got Nick Dacos with the plantar fascia, but he'll be fine. I suspect it might nag him through the year, but he's going to play. And then you've got Harvey Harrison still covering from knee reconstruction. I don't expect him to be best 22, but it may open the spot for a small forward, maybe a Will Hayes or something like that, if they do think that he's better off. But they do have McCreary and also Shorts, who are 2 of the better small forwards in the game. So do you want a small forward or winger type scenario there with Will Hayes or something like Will Hayes, is it whatever, with him there in that scenario? But we'll see about that. I just realised that all of these are in really small text, so I'm having to blow them up. Parrish is probably a guy that almost should. The news is very, very much in doubt with him for playing in the opening round. And this is probably one, even though it's in doubt for opening round, that I think we should start mentioning in terms of their replacement, is Sardis. Sardis was running really well in that practice game that they had against the Dogs, getting decent mid-clock and impressing early. And yeah, maybe that intra-club hype is real. And so with Parrish being touch and go for round 0, it sounds like at the moment we'll get further updates as we go, as teams are starting to produce the sort of weekly injury news updates. I know that we'll get to North Melbourne, but they did one with I think it was Josh Goda, and included like Braden George's timeline. We know that St Kilda did that as well. So the teams, and GWS as well with Tom Green, that we'll get to in a second. So all teams are starting to do that. We just need to, I guess, get further details, etc. on all of them. But keen to see the updated Darcy Parish timeline, because Sardis is definitely someone that in Supercoach is almost a walk-up starter if Darcy Parish's timeline blows out. If it does blow out for Parish in terms of fantasy, it's an interesting discussion, because can Sardis do he's priced at 40 or so. He's priced at 58, I think, actually. 58. Can he do the 85 or so that you probably need, 90 or so that you need to generate the cash, given that he's on the early round buy or whatever, for that M5 role? Or is he just too expensive for that M6 role that we're looking for, that he really fits in for the likes of Supercoach terms? He doesn't really fit that category in terms of fantasy, because I can see him going 85, but Peatling looks like a guy that's going to go mid-90s. also. So that's where I'm really struggling with the Sardis debate in terms of fancy, is fitting him in with that price tag. And you just wish it was 100k cheaper. If it was 500k, I would see him going M6, but 600k, that extra sort of 10 points that he has to outdo it, I can just see a Nevitt or someone like that going a 75, 80 very regularly, whereas Sardis would have to go 90, and I don't know if I see that per se. Is there anyone else here? Jordan Ridley running laps, and rather than participating in match sim, that was about a week and a half ago, so we'll see about that, but I feel like he's going to be fine. And then a lot of guys just running laps. That's the last info I have on them. Then you've got Alwyn Davey out for a couple of weeks of the season, it potentially looks like, or just be back on edge, back on the edge of selection around that round 1 or round 0 date for them. Guelphy, hamstring, 10 to 12 weeks, so they do have a small forward type of a gaping hole there, which could present potentially a debut for what is it, Reece Irwin or something? Let's just check, or have I completely unwin? Someone like that could easily play there. They could push potentially a winger up to that sort of half forward place and get like a Sado Hawley games potentially, or Archie Wicks, I think he has an injury, I want to say, potentially. But yeah, they probably do need a small forward to play. Obviously got Kako there, but I'd suspect they want someone else to partner him there, and I don't know, maybe Gresham as well, and they just go with the 2 or something like that. But will be interesting to see what Essendon do there with a slight little hole in that in the depth player chart with 2 guys down in that department. Moving over to Fremantle, and the big one is Sean Darcy and the impact there with regards to him. So he's out most likely until rounds 3 to 5, but that could blow out. It's said to be the earliest. So that it brings into question what do you do with Reedy, because, and I was trying to do research today with regards to Reedy and what is he going to average, what's his TOG looking like, what's his CBAs, or I should say ruck contest looking like, and it just doesn't fill me with much hope, to be honest with you. He did a 53 and a 50 last year. It looked as though with Reedy that he had some TOG struggles, especially if you look at the scoring breakdown. In the first game, he had 22 points in the first quarter, but then 31 for the rest of the game. If you look at the second game, I think he had 16 in the first quarter and 34 for the rest of the game. If you look at the TOG, 67, 69. I know he had 85 in terms of the practice, in terms of the Indigenous All-Stars game, and he did score 79 in that. But he came against Cohen Livingston, who was probably the 3rd or 4th ruck probably the 5th ruck, maybe even at West Coast. He's behind, I would say, at least Bailey Williams, Matt Flynn, and I want to say that there's another guy there that he's even behind there, as well as potentially even behind the likes of maybe even Jack Darling in terms of part-time ruck work. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of guys that Livingston is behind, and he also had guys like he was rucking against Finlayson. I think even who's the I'm actually going to bring it up now just to show you guys who it was. I swear that was it Joel Jeffries, I want to say, was doing a little bit of ruck work. I want to say that he did a fraction bit, but we'll see. Ash Johnson, Finlayson, and who was it Joel Jeffries? Yeah, it was. That did a little bit of ruck work, and you can just see the numbers there are not too kind. And if you actually look at the numbers in terms of hit-outs and hit-outs to advantage for Reedy, it was not, the hit-out to advantage conversion rate was not good. I don't think it's in advanced stats. No, it's not, which kind of sucks, but it was definitely recorded, and it didn't look good for Reedy, so that's why I'm really hoping that we get an update on Sean Darcy that says a little bit more closer to rounds 3-4 than to 5-6, etc. around that. And then I don't think they have any other injuries. No, just more so impressions around the that game that they had against the Indigenous All-Stars. Then we get to Geelong, and Conway is in doubt, out indefinitely, which is definitely a blow, because he definitely is a young ruck that I feel like has shown promise in times, but being out indefinitely, he's probably going to ruin his season. With a back injury, those can sort of linger a lot, so brings into question Sam De Koning, who rucked in the practice game against the Hawks, and Andrew Mackie himself confirmed what was previously recorded or reported on, that De Koning was spent the summer preparing in the ruck. And also we saw in the practice game, I believe it was Stanley rucked the second half of the game and played more so with the VFL. That will be an interesting thing. And we do get the round 0 look in, which will probably throw into question a lot of what our sides look like. Because I know I'm hot on Perryman, Roberts, etc. to partner of Mills. I'm happy to go with the 2 round 3 bye players, but De Koning's on that bye as well. If Sam De Koning rucks for rucks in round 0 the full game and is lined up to ruck in round 1, do you go Sam De Koning and take that risk because he's going to be 30-40 points upside? Do you take that risk for 3 rounds of him doing it to get that cash then, to get him through, and then you can probably pay up a little bit more somewhere else across the season, across, maybe it's in that forward bench or something like that, or maybe it's the utility or the flex for Supercoach to get that better value, etc. That'll be a big question. And so that's probably the big one from the likes of Geelong. But another one that has popped up in recent times is Guthrie Cameron going under the knife for Achilles injury. No timeline or return to play timeline for him. That really opens up Nevitt, and I think Nevitt's jumping off the page now if we actually go it from his practice game. I've always had him 1.47%. If you look at DFS and you look at his ownership from about a week, I know that some of my team reveals he was around about the 0.5% ownership, I want to say. Could be a little bit lower than that. We'll have to just check and see with the big boards what is exactly was. But if this will load, let's just check with Nevitt here, and we'll check and see what his was. I'm having a guess. It was 0.6 about a week ago, I'd guess, and I want to say he's going to go, if we look here, exactly a week ago would be the 12th. You can see on the 12th he was 0.7% owned, and now it's going 1.5. That's probably going to go to 5.10, as I think people are going to start to look at that M6 as potentially an upgrade, with Sam Lawler being in doubt, which we'll get to for round 1. I suspect they sort of nurse him in. But with that happening, and you can see this 0.2, 0.3, I think a lot of people, this was when I think a lot of the Geelong team previews sort of came out in this region here and got a little bit of a jump, sort of looked at 0.4, and now it's going to skyrocket, I feel like, to 5-10%. But I think that Nevitt will be one that we get that round 0 look in. That will be crucial, and to see, does he get that Kickstarter of 70, 80 that gets his break even into the 20s, etc. And I don't think there's anyone else from Geelong's very quiet on terms of their notes with preseason, etc. We get to Gold Coast, and they've got no one. No one even flagged for anything. Danny Rioli actually came off of the flag list just because he's firming up to play the Community Series against Sydney after doing an MCL in November. So he's about the only flagged one. But again, not many notes from Gold Coast. GWS, they've had, alongside St Kilda, they've had a lot of injuries, or more so just guys, partially injuries, but a lot of that suspension from the antics of last year. So Coniglio is probably a wait and watch in terms of playing. Won't play the Community Series because of a shoulder injury, 1 to 2 weeks. Angwin, ankle injury, 6 weeks out. That, I don't know how many games he necessarily played, Angwin. He played 4 games, so not really best 22. The big one is Tom Green and what they do with regards to Tom Green. And I feel like I should lump that in with, you've got Riccardi suspended, Thomas suspended, Toby McMullen suspended, Faye suspended plus a compounded with a foot injury, Fonte suspended, Callum Brown 4 to 6 weeks. So a lot of fringe guys being suspended or out for 4 to 6 weeks with injuries, which puts them all around that return after the GWS bye, which in round 3, which could stuff everything up in terms of Supercoach. But if you look at that, they don't really have that ball, and I was talking to Dylan Alexander about this last night, or this morning, I forget what it was, and just trying to figure out where do they go in terms of that. And the guy that sort of pops up is Xavier O'Halloran. I feel like could be that one guy, or we just discussed about, do they burn Callum Ward into the ground saying you're going to play full on ball for this time. And we'll give you the recovery when we get Tom Green, when we get those guys back that we need from suspension or injury. So that'll be the big discussion, I feel like, that we'll get to see in the Community Series games. But also, I feel like some of these guys are available for the Community Series games, but then can't play the actual season. So we'll see how... I think Harvey Thomas can play, but he's obviously suspended for the start of the season. So that'll be interesting to see the dynamic there. That's a wait and watch, I feel like. But James Leake is one that I feel like could really, really profit off the injury to Tom Green as well as the other suspensions. And then the other guy probably that needs discussion, I feel like, even though there's not many guys out in his actual position, I feel like is Connor Stone playing that halfback role, just vacated by Perryman. And with Faye Fonte suspended for the start of the year, I guess you can clump that in there. He's probably the guy that comes in there. I'll have to bring up the suspension amounts for Fonte and Faye, but I feel like Faye was one. Faye's also injured as well, so will be interesting to see what goes on there. Hawthorn, I feel like they have a pretty clean slate other than Lewis, who's still recovering. Their key forwards are basically the only injuries that they have. Key position, Blank, don't even think he gets a start, to be honest with you, just because of Barris, Battle, Sicily, etc. all ahead of him. Even Sam Frost, I feel like, could be ahead of Blank, but we'll see about that. Caltridier also out, potentially to gather round Mitchell's first half of the year, so I don't think that they have too much in terms of what they'll do. They may just go a little bit smaller in terms of Hawthorn. With regards to that, Melbourne is probably the next big injury concerns. Judd McVee, it looks, and I could be wrong with the info that I've got, but high-grade hamstring injury ruled out of the opening rounds, and at least 6 weeks, so that looks like the opening 1 to 2 rounds at least. He's been ruled out for his hamstrings, high-grade. We saw Wardlaw 8 to 10 weeks. That might be more because of Wardlaw's injury history rather, but it sounds like they have similar injuries. So that could blow out just another couple of weeks there. So what happens there with regards to that? That could be Matisse Wagner, if I got the name right. Let me just find Monique Wakefield, not Wagner. That is poor by me. Annie Monique Wakefield is the guy that I feel like could take that role there. Tajboy Whedon, we've seen as well, I think, at the back end of the year with some injuries there, that he played a little bit. So those two come onto the radar. I feel like we know Petty's going to come back into the back line, so maybe that becomes an easier shift. The next guy up, Jack Vine, he's still racing against the clock to play. Round 1, I still expect him to play. Thulstrop, 10 to 12 weeks with signs of bone stress. That was a couple of weeks ago, so that's still there. He'll be out for the early part of the season. That's, given the timeline there, that's probably 10 to 12 weeks, minus about 5 weeks for still preseason. So that's looking around 5 to 7, I have a feeling, depending on how he pulls up there. So that is a little bit of a worry. And that opens up a chance for small forwards, and they probably have a lot of them. You could almost include Marty Hall in that debate for that halfback role there. But for small forwards, it's kind of hard. I feel like Ricky Menther might come into consideration there. I feel like he's a small forward, but let me actually just... Ricky Menther. I've done this search before as well. Crafty small forward, yeah, that's probably where they're going to go with that to fill in that hole. Then you've got Jake Melcham, another similar player. These guys are Melcham, and it feels like the likes of Thulstrop are more medium, but they could go small with that. And yeah, he did a hamstring tear at training. No timeline that I can find at the moment, but I could be just missing that info as that was 10 days ago. But we'll see about that. McAdam ruptured his ACL, so he's out for the year as well. Another medium or small that they've lost, which they do have a hole there now that they probably got to fill. Maybe Petrarca goes more forward now to fill that. And Pickett as well, suspended for the first couple rounds. So that's 4 or 5 small forwards going down. And then Luke Kentfield is also out. So they have a small forward crisis for the first 3-4 weeks, it sounds like, until Pickett's back. So we'll see what happens there. North Melbourne, an interesting update that we got. I feel like 10 to 12 weeks for Wardlaw 2 weeks ago. So that now puts him So we still have, that would be about that round 5 to 7 region is where I sort of see it happening, and that definitely opens up opportunities for stepping stone players. Parker, Simkin I don't see as a stepping stone at his price point, but Parker definitely. Powell I think could potentially, but I feel like Parker's probably the one that could do it, but they also could just put in a Will Phillips, which he would go straight back out, I feel like. So that's an interesting one. Probably opens up Harry Sheezel getting full mid-time minutes, I feel like. Potentially some for Colby McKercher, but I feel like he's going to be one of the traps of the year playing half-forward wing. Coleman Jones out till May, June, rehab from an Achilles last year. Key forward, is it key defender or key forward? Key position player. From memory, and that will put stress on there. But then again, they played half the year with him out anyway, so they should be fine. Gota, a guy that I was pretty keen on, to be honest with you, in terms of just, and I'll bring it up here, Gota here, priced at 408k. He could have easily been a guy that went and scored, I don't know, 70 or so, and being a guy that we can sort of place in at that D5 role. But he's down injured, estimated 6 weeks before his return, and that happened only a couple of days ago. So that's looking more likely around round 3 or so, I would say. Brandon George still 8 to 9 weeks away from the ACL that he did last year, so there's that. And so, I don't think a lot of these guys have too much impact other than the injury to Wardlaw. Port Adelaide, I'm trying to speed this up a little bit here. We had Tom Marshall season over, so that opens up a potential tall option, but a lot of their talls are out. Radaglia injury to knee, and also you've got the likes of Zerk Thatcher injury to his back. So I don't know the exact timelines with Zerk Thatcher and Radaglia, but both of them being out opens up a hole in the back line. So we're probably going to see, in terms of the Tom Marshall injury, you're probably going to see Ollie Law get game time. In terms of the Radaglia and Zerk Thatcher, that's a damn good question. I am looking through their list now and going, who is actually going to play down back? I don't know their list too much. I saw something, I forget who it was, maybe Willem Drew talked about potentially Finlayson going down back, which would be interesting. Maybe they go slightly small down back with only, say, 2 key defenders and more of a 185, 188 guy playing slightly up, something like that. But will be interesting to see what they do, as I have no idea what they're going to do, and that is a massive hole to try and fill. And also I feel like Willem Drew probably comes off of the injury sort of wait and see, because he's expected to play in the Community Series after having plantar fascia. He should play 1 preseason game, which is good, and that could also limit potentially Horne-Francis's upside. Just putting it out there. Richmond have had injury after injury after injury. Smiley in doubt for round 1. It feels like we don't know. He didn't play against West Coast in that trial game, so we'll see how he goes if he does play against Collingwood, or whether they sort of integrate him slowly in terms of, because you can't really have a guy 70, 80, 90% going into an AFL game. You'd rather feed him through the VFL, so it'd be interesting to see how that goes. Gibcus went to Qatar for his ACL injury, and still looks like late April, early May type of scenario for him. So he's there. Tom Lynch is fine. Bolter has that 4-game suspension. Layla they said, could potentially play round 1. I still want to talk to some Richmond fans about this. I have a feeling they bleed him in slowly. They look to see him in a couple of VFL games, because again, you don't want him and Smiley playing round 1 just for the sake of it. There's so much more to lose from Layla being unfit than there is to just giving him, say, a half in the VFL or something like that, and then building up his game time, because obviously he hasn't had a full preseason a lot of his junior career, and now won't have a full preseason in terms of his men's start. So I feel like they could bleed him through a little bit, which could actually help a little bit in terms of us having rookie prospects to go to in rounds 4, 5, 6, etc. Justin Clark and Taj Houghton won't be back before April, as I believe it was Clark that was leading the race for the players being back from ACL, and they said April for him, so Houghton might be even May or so. Lafau also the same thing, and Tyler Young. They have a massive ACL brigade that they have there. So it'll be interesting to see, but a lot of these guys have been down for most of the year anyway, so they didn't play with them most of last year, etc. And Taj Houghton obviously coming to the club with an ACL. So it'll be interesting to see this occur. I feel like Taj Houghton will be one that will be bled through, probably a massive sub risk when he does come back in mid-season. But it opens up a massive opportunity for guys that probably you wouldn't expect. Maybe Luke Traynor gets an early debut. Thomas Sims, a lot of their tools, Harry Armstrong could get early debuts. But we'll wait and see. And there is still debate on the defender to partner, the distributor to partner short. St Kilda will run through their injuries. Paddy Dow still TBD or TBC. With regards to his injury, didn't show up there, but he's out for the first couple of rounds from a knee injury. So there's that. Rowan Marshall still I feel like is flagged in doubt for round 1, and that opens up the opportunity for Boyd. If he potentially plays, Boyd may also partner him to get Marshall through the opening couple of rounds. So we'll see about that after he does have a stress fracture in his pelvis. So we'll see what that goes on there. So that's especially important when you factor in the R3 debate with Reedy and paying up there. Dougal Howard injury, 11 to 12 weeks. This opens up the debate with Schoenmaker and what role is he going to play. Is he going to play a more distributor role, or is he going to play just down back, a more lockdown role? Very, very intriguing in my opinion. And he could open up for that D5 spot depending on Howard, Sinclair, etc. Liam Henry, knee injury, expected 6 weeks from the 13th. That is still another, 3-4 weeks? So round 3 or so, I feel like, for Liam Henry. Philippou, he's still 9-10 weeks away or whatever, so he's still a while away. Alex Taru as well, 7 to 9 weeks away, so he won't be debuting anytime soon, which opens up the opportunity for Schoenmaker. I feel like he's going to play a sort of non-distributing, third tall intercepting player that's probably going to average 60, 65, give or take. And he's currently priced at 48. So there's value there, but not too much value, I feel like. And you really want those guys, if they're priced below 50, to be plus 25, 30. And I just don't see it with Schoenmaker, but we do get practice games to see. Sinclair in doubt for round 1, which furthers the debate about who goes in terms of Schoenmaker, what role does he play, someone else come in, etc. with regards to that. Sydney, pretty clean bill of health respectively, a lot of guys. Hayden McLean, we haven't seen this preseason, but should be fine for round 0. Logan McDonald, they're going to probably play a combination of McLean and Amati for the first couple of rounds. If McDonald isn't, I feel like they're going to bleed him slowly in, but that's sort of the key position, right? Jesse Detoli still resuming running probably in another week or 2. So he'll be bled in mid-season. I feel like rounds 10 or so maybe, and get a run in the VFL first, etc. So yeah, there's that. And then Will Edwards resuming first team training in the next month or so. That was on the 6th from a fractured leg last December. And then Caden Cleary suspended for 2 weeks. 2 games, I should say, and for illegal substance use. And Sydney could do potentially something more, or maybe informally suspend him, maybe. I don't know exactly what they'll do, but they'll probably come down hard on him for that. And that opens up an opportunity for Corey Warner, who's been training a house down, as they like to say it, for him to play that small forward role. Tom Hanley probably bumps up the line a little bit in case of an injury to Corey Warner, but you probably also factor in Braden Campbell playing that role, or at least that's what he did say he's going to play in terms of his sign-on video when he re-signed to 2027. And then Buller also 2 to 4 weeks from the 6th because he injured his shoulder in match sim, which kind of probably puts him out of line for the KPF role. And that's probably why you've seen Tom McCartan play there a little bit. I feel like when you get Logan McDonald, Hayden McLean, Jack Buller, Amati all back and firing, he won't be playing there. But also with only like one key forward fit, he kind of has to play there a little bit. And then you've got West Coast. They have injury concerns. Let's go to them. You've got Dom Sheed, ACL, out for the season. That opens up opportunities for the likes of Elijah Hewitt, who's been training absolutely the house down, especially when you compound that with Elliot Yeo's injury, and he should be out for the first month of the season, I have from the reports from the 6th of February, with medial ligaments in his right knee, and ankle syndesmosis. So still in the moon boot on the 12th. We'll see what other updates we get there. But Elijah Hewitt's the one that's firming up to take that place. Harley Reid's fine. It sounds like he just had a little bit of a sore ankle. And yeah, that seems it for the injuries from, especially the injuries from that are more mainstay. You've got Matt Flynn, who's had a sore back like 3 times in preseason now. 3 different times he couldn't fit or complete the session due to it. So that's a massive concern, and probably enough to wear us away from the flex position for him. Callum Jamieson as well is rehabilitating after ankle and knee surgery last year. So don't have an exact timeline for him, but not too worried about that. So it brings into question how they're going to ruck, because can Bailey Williams be the full ruck, or are they going to have to bring in Cohen Livingston or something like that, or are they going to bring in, is it Jack Williams that could potentially play there as well, or ruck some more time? It will be interesting to see that, but I feel like there's more discussion around the midfielders for West Coast, and I know that this video is going on a while, but yeah, definitely Elijah Hewitt, Jack Hutchinson and stuff. Let's wait and watch for their roles. Then you've got Western Bulldogs, who have been absolutely smashed with injuries. Players not training, I would say, is the best way to put it. But Treloar injury opens up Sanders' role for there, as he injured his calf. 8 to 10 weeks on the 5th. That would mean that's about 3 to 5, round 3 to 5, give or take. Jamara's still not playing, won't play round 1. That's just, I don't even want to go into much about his scenario there, but more so around who's going to replace him. Sam Darcy potentially playing more tall. Maybe Tim English plays as forward and they bring in Crossley, etc. But we still haven't seen. I don't even know who they brought in for the SSP. To be honest, I should probably look that up. Who did the Dogs sign for that? As I swear that deadline passed, or maybe it hasn't passed yet. So let's look at Braden Crossley. And look at what's happened for the Dogs SSP. I haven't seen anything in regards to who they signed. So yeah, that will be interesting, because Bulldogs haven't signed him yet, and there's 2 days to go. So could even like Geelong potentially sign him? I don't know exactly with regards to that. So interesting there. How their forward setup works. Cody Waitman, knee injury, 12 weeks or so is the verdict. They say 3 months or so, it sounds like, but we'll get a better injury timeline as we go on. That opens the door for potentially Cooper Hines, but don't think he would play as small as that. Other guys on the list that could play there, James Harms could, but I don't think him. Josh Dolan is probably the obvious one, I would say. Potentially like a Riley Garcia is probably going to play. Arthur Jones probably potentially gets a better run in, etc. So we'll see about who gets that run in. Sanders is the one that picks up from the Treloar injury, and then we get down to the bottom of the list. Liam Jones, hamstring, 8 to 10 weeks, probably opens up James O'Donnell to play. And then Libba was just rested, and then Joe Hannison 2 to 3 months on the 6th from a high-grade hammy. That is interesting with regards to who gets that distribution role. Fraser and Dale probably are the 2 that just go and play there. And that is pretty much that for the injury update, etc. Video. Definitely a longer one than I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be about 25 minutes, but it's gone for 40. A little bit long. But if you did stay till the end, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on as we get back into content. in preparation for the season, preseason, everything's going to probably heat up, especially when we get to the official matches and we get more scoring matches that we can see roll as well as score, etc. like that. But yeah, if you subscribe, notification bell on so you can know when that happens. And if you're listening on Spotify, give me a follow and a rating over there. And I'll see you guys next tomorrow, I guess, for another video on AFL Fantasy or Supercoach content. See you guys then. Bye, guys.